Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our 100th show. This is a great collaboration between me and Pete. Today, Pete has joined us because it's one of the things we like to talk about with all these big schools devouring their cannolis all year long. Pete and I decided to have some cannolis today for our 100th show. We are celebrating with cannolis and, of course, Canada Dry Ginger Ale. All right, Pete, that is funny and that is so cool. But right from the very, very beginning here, we're going to give you a little bit of a frame out, a little bit of our baselines. We jump into Pete's Corner very quickly. We're going to give you our NBA Power 15, but there's a lot to talk about with this NCAA tournament that's going on. An awful lot to talk about. I'm going to call it, Pete, NCAA Tournament by Design.
By design?
By design. That's what we're going to talk about today. What you're seeing in front of your eyes has been designed a bunch of years ago, started with the portal, started with the NIL. We'll close it up for you later, folks. But Pete's going to jump right into Pete's Corner with us. Hot segment of our show where Pete formulates 3 questions and throws them my way.
All right, question number 1. Now that we're through the Sweet 16, what's the mindset of a coach to keep your players together, having fought 2, probably potentially 3 hard-fought games if you're a Cinderella team and gotten this far? How do you keep your team together with the breaks that you have in between to keep them focused on the final prize, which is winning the national championship?
That's a good question. And one of the things that's becoming more and more apparent now is that nobody really has any really significant idea about how to run this thing. You know, when the portal came in and the NIL came in, there's really, really nobody that seems to know exactly how to run this thing. The thing is running the thing right now. Mm-hmm. And so when you're getting to a Sweet thing, in normal days, let's talk about the old days, Pete, you know, you would have your team generally on site. They're in hotels. You're trying to get them out of there because they have a tendency to sleep too much. You're taking them to walkthroughs at the gyms that are available to you. You're practicing a little bit in between. But the way it's going right now, as you saw, the teams that played Thursday night are playing tonight. And the teams that played Friday night are playing on Sunday. So it's bang, bang right now. You don't have a lot of time in between that right then. And so I would imagine the whole thing is keeping everybody rested, keeping everybody away from some of the social distractions. But right now, you know, as we fast forward now and then we talk about, okay, that's the way it was in the old days. Now, social media blows up. Teammates are finding out that their own teammates are in the portal while they're still playing. Coaches are leaving their schools to take jobs at other schools while their team is still playing. We've never really seen this before to this level.
Yeah.
So I said a while back, and I hate to be a contrarian about it, but I don't really think that anybody has a really good grasp on what's going on right now. Let everybody wait until after the play is done. The NCAA tournament is your golden goose. That's what brought you to the dance, and that's what you should dance with. Mm-hmm. And right now, there's just so much going on in between it and around it, and the execution of the tournament itself hasn't been great, I don't think, because they're slamming. You know, in a first day, you got 32 teams playing one day, and then the very next day you have 32 teams playing. It's 16 games on one day, 16 games on another day. It's on TNT, it's on TBS, it's back and forth. I mean, it's just not really conducive to having a real good follow on it. You know, you have all these guys in the studios with multiple TVs, and they got different sites going in. I mean, I think it's a little easier there, but we're all still human also, and you can only concentrate on one thing at a time, really. You know, and so to have all this stuff just piled on top of it, and then we're throwing the NIT in there. and some other stuff that's been in there. I just think right now they would do themselves better, Pete, to protect the brand, protect what's been good for them, and all of this stuff right here. I have to be honest with you, and I'm going to lay it out for people. Everybody loves the coaching carousel. Only coaches get paid for that, though. There's only coaches getting paid there, okay? Everybody loves the portal and the NIL. Yeah, there's a few players that are getting paid there, and there are a few players that are moving from school to school and increasing their viability and their profitability. But at the same time, it's just a situation where you don't have the control of the locker room anymore. You don't have that general vibration and feeling that was at March Madness. And we're going to talk about that. As far as madness is concerned, this tournament gets an F.
Yeah.
This tournament is a grade F as far as madness is concerned. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth, but this has been by design. The NIL, the portal, this was all to favor the Power 5 schools.
Yep.
And now it's here. And the separation and the schism between the power schools and everybody else is growing by leaps and bounds, especially when you have a really good player at a mid-major school that's automatically gone the next year. He's automatically gone the next year. I mean, I can't imagine what some of these coaches are going through. You can rationale it out and say, well, they're very high paid and they get to leave whatever time they want. But you still build up relationships with your players. You still go through a lot regardless of all of that stuff that's now in play. The relationships are still there. And it's got to be a little bit of a punch in the gut when maybe even a coach reads on social media, that his own players not coming back. They're not going to stay with them. And it's always your best players usually that you're losing. And so at that level, at the mid-major level right now, I just don't know how it's tenable for those coaches even to enjoy themselves doing what they're doing right now. I'll give you an example. I'm not going to name anybody's name, not going to name the program, but, us coaches talk, and we're privy to information that other people aren't. So that's why I don't want to lay nobody out here. Okay, but you have a program, and maybe their one or two best player. He's talking to the coach, and maybe the coach has a difficult, way of handling this as well too, where the coach might say, "If you put your name in the portal, we're done. We're not going to negotiate. We're not going to take you back. By you putting your name in the portal, that's an act of war, and we're going to let you go wherever you go, but it won't be coming back here." Some coaches do that. Other coaches have it open and they leave it. All right. But now you're just hemorrhaging players. Indiana, almost their entire roster gone. And so when we get back to this other specific, at least they had an agreement with their best player that he was going to come back. And maybe we'll go and have some NIL arrangement. And so rather than create a DEFCON 3 situation, the player remained out of the portal. But then the offers came anyway. And so...
Isn't that illegal?
And so now you have a player saying, okay, we're going to get you $800,000 to $1 million, when the other school isn't capable of doing that and is more in probably the $250,000 range. So this offer blows their offer out of the water. They have no chance at retention. And so what you're seeing in the Sweet 16, somebody put up a graphic. The Purdue team was the only team that had retained all 5 of their players from the very beginning.
Wow.
We've talked about this on the show as well. Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, and Elijah Martin, I think the best backcourt in the country for the University of Florida. I've said it all along here during the show. But now you look, and each one of those players, Clayton, was from Iona. Elijah Martin was on that FAU team that went to the Final Four. Will Richard was at a different school as well. So the best 3 guards that I think exist in the country playing together, They all just came from other places. But, Pete, great question. The Sweet 16 ain't as sweet as it used to be.
All right, so following up on that, seeing as how great the portal's working in the NCAA, is it time for the portal in the NBA?
I think there has to be. No, it's a good question. I love this question, too, because it feeds into my wheelhouse a little bit. I think there has to be more freedom for NBA teams, and we're going to, again, I hate to keep saying we're going to talk about it later in the show, but I had a segment on this later in the show, and so we're going to, it'll piggyback off, and I have it under the heading of load managers. Who were the best load managers this year, meaning who played the fewest amount of games, you know? And so it's just right now, there has to be more freedom for NBA teams to say, he just won't suit up. He's working with the training staff, and we've got an injury, and there are things that we used to call in the coaching business phantom injuries. Now you got training staff, you got everybody in there, but if a guy says he's hurt, the trainers aren't going to tell him he's not. Guy goes into the trainer, they're going to keep looking, they're going to keep looking. Now they may come back to the coach and go, look, we don't know what he's talking about. He might be faking it. We can't really find anything. Or in the course of a basketball season, there might be always something you could point to a trainer and say, okay, I need to be held out of the game. But I think the NBA buried themselves when they got into all those contractual obligations with these guys, all of those salary cap implications, just by simply releasing a player. For example, Joel Embiid this year played in very, very few games for the 76ers. And if the 76ers want, they should be able to just dump him. Let anybody else pick him up that they want if they want, but they should be able to just get rid of him and not incur all of his salary in the salary cap until the year 3000. You know, I just think.
Or conversely, should a player just be able to say, I want out?
I think that they can. The players have a little bit of control over it on that side where they can say, I want out and I'm only going to these three places. You saw that in the recent Jimmy Butler trade, where he said, "Okay, I'm out. I'm not going to play in a Heat uniform anymore. And here's my three destinations choices." You know, so they have that protection. The players have a little bit of that protection as well. But I would be for that as well too. Might create a little bit of mayhem, you know, in the league a little bit. But I think, you know, then they would have the ability to release players. And once NBA owners start talking about, okay, when we release guys, nobody picked them up. That's what it'd be coming next. The NBA league will say, okay, if you release a player, all of the owners, stay off of them. Don't pick them up. And the players can get blackballed that way as well. So I wouldn't want to open up to a crazy, you know, Wild West show like we're having down on the NCAA level. But I do think there could be some flexibilities in both ways that you're talking about there. Yep, in both ways that creates more flexibility for when players are just saying, man, I'm on the hook for 45 to 50 million, and I'm going to play 20 games this year. There has to be some freedom for the team to say, man, we got to get out of this, and we got to get out of it now. You know, and when you look at it histrionically and you look at it as a player, some of that is chronic with players. Some of that is chronic. I don't want to throw names out there, but people know who we're talking about. Some of the injury stuff is chronic with players. They're always hurt. And basically what it is they don't want to travel, they don't want to do nothing, they don't want to have to play. Come back when they feel like it, jump in when they feel like it. It's really out of control. And right now you're seeing it in the NBA to pandemic levels in the NBA with that. All right, Pete, let's go for number 3.
All right. Number 3 is, do teams in the NCAA all over, all 3 divisions, already have staff working on the portal as soon as it opens? Because the coaches, you know, head coaches, things like that, some are still coaching, some are still in tournaments. Do they have dedicated staff or even non-dedicated staff, like assistant coaches, working on the portal as soon as it opens up?
So, yes, immediately. They're in there. They're in the portal immediately. You had this guy, Pat Kelsey, who coaches at Louisville. He said, we're hitting the refresh button on the portal every 15 minutes. They're heavily, heavily into the portal right now because that's where they're doing their recruiting from.
Right.
They're not really going out and signing players like they used to. You know, we're going to look at this guy early in November. We're going to put him in a signing period. We're not signing anybody early anymore. We're going to wait. We're going to wait to see who comes out there. We're going to see what we can afford with our budget, you know. And I think that's really a bit of it, too, is that some of these budgets are in flux. Some of them are growing, obviously, and some of them are in flux. And there was an article that was sent to me through the week that I didn't know the article made the point exactly, because the point they were trying to make was that the non-football schools right now are going to benefit because they're able to put more money into their NIL than the football schools are.
Well,
because
okay.
if you're capped at 20 million, 21 million, whatever that might be, the schools are going to develop a formula for how that money should be distributed so that it gets distributed equitably amongst, at least not equitably, but at least in the fashion that they think it should be.
Proportionally, yeah.
Right. So football's going to get 75% of that 22 million. No question. Basketball is going to get 20%. And then you're going to have some other sports in there that are going to dribble in there and get something as well. But it's not going to be at the level of those other sports.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what you have now is, now you're going to say, okay, we have a number for Arkansas, who has a huge football program. Alabama got a huge football program. They're going to need every bit of that $16 million to go to the players that they're trying to sign. Now, you go to a non-football school, they're reported to have upwards in the Big East of $6 million per team right now per class. So you have 4 players, that's 1.5 per player, if that's the way you want to stretch it out. So they're saying that the football schools are at a deficit because of this. And that's just probably an article written by the football schools who are trying to get this thing changed to raise the number above 20 million, most likely. I think that's, if you're really an NIL fan, if you're really into this thing, look at that number to change. They're in for 20 million right now. I would look for that number to change. You might get some fight on university campuses about splitting up that much money and that much more money. But I think the 20 million number is going to be negotiable because the football programs are going to want it to be higher. Okay? So now you go back, though. Here's where there's folly in that whole story, because NIL has 2 streams. NIL has a revenue stream, what they call a revenue stream, and then they have what else is called, I would assume some people call it, and maybe I'm conflating things here, but a lot of people call the outside stream. You can call them whatever you want, but there's 2 streams. And the other one is called collective. So you go into your revenue stream, you spend all your revenue stream. Your second stream are all of your boosters, all of your guys with money. And I'm telling you, and I'm going to tell all of our people now, again, we're not going to lay anybody out, we're not going to name names, but there are actually lower Division I programs firing coaches, bringing in new coaches who have promises from whatever source may be.
Bring the money with you.
But they're bringing the money with them, whether it be familial or whether it be through NBA ties or whatever it is. But basically, if it's familial, you're basically able to buy your children jobs now.
You know where that happens a lot? Auto racing. A driver brings sponsors with them to a team.
But think about that, right? You have Bill Gates' son wants to be a coach.
Yep.
Hasn't coached before. But Bill Gates tells said university he's coming in with a 10 million NIL program every single year for the next 15 years.
Are they going to say no?
You're going to buy the job.
Are they going to say no? Of course not.
They haven't. I'm telling you, it's already occurred. I'm not naming names. I'm not saying. I'm telling you, it's already occurred. It's already happening. And it's going to continue this way, especially at the lower levels where they're trying to get their game up and running. They don't have a lot of money. They got to really rely on different people. But if you want to look for some of this malfeasance, go to the lower levels. All right, Pete, let's go to Power 15 in the NBA right now, we got a little bit of action going on there, Pete. And I wanted to lay it out for everybody. OKC Thunder is going to take the West. There's nobody even close to them right now. The Houston Rockets are the second team in the West, but they cannot catch the OKC Thunder. There's over 13 games between those two. OKC Thunder 61-12, and they are running away with not only the West, but the entire NBA right now. The Cavaliers, here's the story, Pete. The Cavaliers have been a little heavy lately. They're falling. And right now, believe it or not, the NBA is under the 10-game mark right now before we head into the playoffs. Wow. I'm excited about that, too, because the playoffs is always a good time of year. But right now, the Cavaliers are falling. The Celtics are rising, and the Celtics are now about 4.5 games off that pace to take the Eastern Conference. I don't think, personally, there's enough games left, but it's interesting to see. It's going to wind up close. I think Cleveland holds it, and I think the Celtics go in as number 2. Celtics 54-19, but they're playing good basketball right now, Celtics fans. They're hot. They're coming together at the right time of year. And if some of these injuries go away, I got Kristaps Porzingis on my load manager list, and it doesn't look pretty there. Houston Rockets 48-26. I gave you this team earlier in the year, folks, and I said they're going to be good. They wound up second in the conference, in the Western Conference right now, holding on, and it looks pretty good for them, right now to hold on to that number 2 spot. Right now, you're playing for home field advantage there. All these NBA teams are going to get home court advantage in that first round. That's what they're looking for, especially as you get a little closer, to those 4 or 5 games, those games that are a little more evenly matched. There's my New York Knicks, 45-27. Kind of an unhappy bunch. I don't know what's going on down there, but they seem to have a lot of issues going on off the court, on the court, locker room court, everywhere but, where it should be. Denver Nuggets, 46-28. The Joker has been in and out a little bit, and if you keep an eye on that situation. If they have some injuries, they're going to be in trouble. But right now, the Nuggets, they're looking at being in the 3 spot and having home court advantage. Lakers are looking for home court advantage, and it looks like they might get it. 44-29. They're holding on. LeBron is hurt right now a little bit. A couple of bang-ups, but they're able to hold on. Let's see. Memphis Grizzlies, holy smokes. Pete, we got to stop this one. 44-29. Great job by the Grizzlies. Awesome job by their whole organization getting this program together. Last year, without Ja Morant, almost the entire year. And this year, they brought in Zach Edey. He's gotten hurt a little bit. But the program's been able to hold it together in really an admirable fashion. Even to the point, Pete, where In the Zone has picked them as one of our surprise teams and says, I'm not sure how they're doing it, but they're doing it great. And as a result, they fired their coach. They're doing so great, they fired their coach. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but something has to be going on there that does not meet the eye. Because I'll go back to one of my favorite hypocrites, Steve Kerr, who the Warriors coach, and we're still seething over the treatment he gave Jason Tatum in the playoffs, but also Steve Kerr, when Mike Brown from the Sacramento Kings was let go earlier in the year, he's one of the first guys let go, they were on the soapbox going wild about, oh, my God, they shouldn't fire Steve Kerr. Well, when this guy got fired the other day, nobody said boo. So something's going on there. I don't know what it is, Pete, but it was awful quiet. Indiana Pacers, 43-30. They might be able to lock up some home court advantage there as well. The Clippers are holding on with James Harden, 41-31. The Clippers cleaned out Paul George. The Clippers cleaned out a couple of other guys, and they've just been able to maintain, and some of those other guys don't even play. So the Clippers really did a good job there. They're 41-31. It's called addition by subtraction. You got better by getting rid of some of the people you had that were holding you back. Golden State Warriors, 41-31. Steph is hurt. It's not going to be anything that's going to be keeping them out of the playoffs, I think. but having Jimmy Butler there doesn't hurt right now, I tell you that, because Steph Curry's been hurt a little bit and missed some games. Detroit Pistons, 41-32. A little bit of turbulence recently, but still holding on. Still got a playoff spot. And if anybody would have told you at the beginning of the year, the Detroit Pistons are coming off the deck out of DFL and they're going to be a playoff team, I think people would have told you to have your head examined. I certainly would have told you to take a look at what you had been imbibing. Minnesota Timberwolves, Milwaukee Bucks, and the Sacramento Kings close it out, Pete. The Bucks just kind of wallowing. They were up, they were down, they're around. They won the cup, but right now they're going to be on the road for the playoffs, and they've just had some really, really bad injuries, and if they didn't have Giannis Antetokounmpo right now, they would be just completely out of it. All right, Taylor Jenkins is the gentleman we were aforementioning. 250 and 214, over 500 total for the Grizzlies. But right now, as you said, 44-29. He's only one of 3 coaches to have been fired in NBA history with 40 wins during the season.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. The Pacers on pace. They scored 162 points. Who did they score it against, Pete? The Wizards. Of course they did. 162-109. That's a beatdown.
Don't you mean the Generals?
They are. The Generals wouldn't get beat that bad. And the most lopsided defeat in Wizards history, I was shocked by that. And the Pacers set records all over the table. 27 three-pointers. This is one I really liked. 48 assists. Wow, that's a great number. They were 59 of 92 for 641, 64% from the floor. Basically, what the Wizards are saying was, not only did we leave it in the locker room, we left our game in the airport.
They showed up and had a pulse.
Barely. David Johansen and the Buster Poindexter section, who's hot, who's not. The Celtics have won 7 in a row. I think it's 8 now. And they're very, very hot and playing well. The Bulls have won 4, trying to make a little run there. OKC has won 8. They've been hot all year. Who's not hot, Pete? The same people who haven't been hot all year, unfortunately. Utah Jazz, L4. The Nets, L5. And the Sixers, L6. They got a lot of talent on that bench, Pete. Okay, the Lakers brought in Luka for his defensive effort. I don't think that's true, but January 15th to March 7th, they were giving up 107 points. Since that time, they're giving up 119 points. They picked up Luka on February 1st. We refer to him as Luka Onchik because there is no D. There really is no D. Okay, right now there's less than 10 games remain in the season, and really the only storyline that we have out there, Pete, is the Celtics and the Cavaliers. Can they catch them? They're a little bit tight, but everything else is really kind of set and ready to go. And as we get through the weeks here, we're going to be ready to get you set for the playoffs in the NBA as well. Here's your DFLs, folks. Those are the people who have fallen. They can't get up. The Wizards. They are 16-57 right now, but they're only 2 games behind Charlotte for DFL. There's still hope for them to get out of DFL. I don't see it when you're giving up 160 points. But hey, there's always something to pray for. Western Conference, 16-59, the Utah Jazz. They're 4.5 games off with the Pelicans. All right, Pete, just to close out with our NBA, here's our load managers. Joel Embiid, 19 games. 19 games. Kawhi Leonard, 30 games. Paul George, 41 games. Those 3 gentlemen form the leg law firm for us. They have represented players all year who have trouble making it to work, who have trouble getting out of bed, and who have trouble, for sure, playing back-to-back. But there they are, Pete. 41 games for Paul George. He got all sorts of crazy this year. Zion Williamson, the Big Z, 30 games. Kristaps Porzingis, 37 games he's played. Terrible. Anthony Davis, 42 games for the Lakers, 3 games for the Mavericks. Ja Morant, the Grizz, he's only played in 43 games. I wouldn't be surprised if they were looking to move him as well, the coach and one of their better players. Chris Middleton from the Bucks, he's traded to the Wiz. He's 23-14. He's played in 37 games. Bradley Beal from the Suns, has played in 48 games. Those guys basically
I'm fallen,
are
and I can't get up.
our quick alert team, and that was a good one, Pete. And it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable the way things have gone. But the beauty of it is right after that NBA little segment, we are going to absolutely pile right into the NCAA. What's going on? We got the NIT Final Four in case anybody's having trouble sleeping at night. We don't need no-dos. You don't need any of that other stuff. You just put on an NIT game and you'll be snoring in no time. And then you got this NCAA, Pete. What in the name of God is going on? You got 8 teams left. Here it goes, folks. 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-3. What does that mean? It means of the 8 teams left, upon entering the NCAA tournament, they were 4 1 seeds. Can you imagine what's going to happen if they get all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four? That could really happen. You're talking about Florida, Auburn, Duke.
It's the first time in my memory that it's happened. It hasn't happened in a long time.
Charlie Baker took Cinderella out. Cinderella's out. And I'm going to tell you, folks, there's a lot to go about in this tournament. We're not going to get into it specifically, but when I say by design that these teams are making the top, TV is calling the shots, I'm telling you this is by design. The odds on this are just unbelievably scarce that this could occur in the fashion, in the way that it did. And boy, oh boy, when you turn on your television, people are shaking their head going, what happened on that one? Well, it always seems to work in only one direction. And when it's that old boy band, One Direction, shows up, you got to say, All right, Pete, how did we get to the Elite Eight? Florida took out Maryland. Good game. Florida in control most of the day, though. Florida really, really in control. Their backcourt's terrific. Their length and size is a problem for just about everybody. And what they do is they just go and put all the size they have out there at one time, and then you can't match up with it. And one of those matchups is where they find you. Really good job by their coaching staff. They get 5 players in double figures. You know, they have balance. They got a lot of guys that can hurt you. But again, Clayton, Richard, and Elijah Martin has been the best, I said the best backcourt in the country all year. I think I've been right on that one. Reese and Queen. Okay, Julian Reese, all right? His sister is Angel Reese. And now they're both from Baltimore. He had 12 and 8, okay? And I think he's going to be a pro. I don't know that a lot of people will have him in their first 2 rounds, but I would like to really get a look at him in the combine and see. I think he's going to be a pretty good pro. I might have him in my second round. But the big dog, Derek Queen, 27 points, 5 rebounds. I'd like to see him get on the boards a little bit more, but he's highly skilled, 6'11". And when I say that I have some trepidation about Cooper Flagg as one, and I have to tell the fans out there, because we got some Duke people that watch this and probably mad at me all year for saying I didn't know how well Cooper Flagg's game will translate to the NBA. It's a fair assessment, folks. But that assessment's going down and down. The more I'm watching him, the more I think he's going to be something pretty good in the NBA. I just worry about him getting injured because he plays with reckless abandon. He really does. He's a joy to watch. But again, I'm not backing off my reservations about that. And they say, well, then people go, but who you got? Which is a fair question. I'd say Derek Queen. I would say Derek Queen. If you're asking me who I got, I'm saying Derek Queen. They handled Maryland pretty well there. If you look over the course of time, I mean, they manhandled them on the glass, 42-20, something like that. And the whole time that they've had this thing, the Maryland group has had it hanging over there. What's their coach going to do? all the press conferences. Coach, are you staying? Coach, are you leaving? Coach, what's going on? All of those questions. We only have 24 hours in the day, folks. And every time you ask Kevin Willard the same exact question, you're taking time away from actually finding out about his team, finding out about their run, finding about what makes them tick, and instead talking about all of this internecine fighting that's going on as these people are trying to pay and keep their highly paid coach. And there's talk of him going to Villanova right now. We'll see how that settles out. Maryland is at a deficit right now because, as Willard told everybody at his press conference, his AD was leaving to take the AD job at SMU. So, and it's true, though. How am I going to negotiate with a guy that I don't even know? How am I going to work for a guy that I don't even know? Here's the thing. There's a little bit of juxtaposition in here what people might think happens. The ADs right now are not the bosses of these Power 5 basketball coaches. The ADs are not the bosses of these. They're just not even. John Calipari gets $9 million. The AD at Arkansas maybe gets $1.5 million. There's a lot of millions in between there. You know, and so that stuff matters. And so these ADs more are conciliatory people that are in between working, you know, between agents and the school president and the NIL people and all of this other stuff. But they really don't, you know. So Kevin Willard saying, I don't know who I'm going to be working for is a little disingenuous. You don't know who's going to be working for you would have been a better way to frame that.
They're the coach's concierge.
Right.
And they may have power over other sports, but not the majors.
And, I mean, if they got to walk one of those guys out the door at 2-3 years, you're talking $15 million.
Yep.
Walk away money. Come on. It's a little difficult to listen to. All right, Duke and Arizona, good game, but, man, the Dukies are on fire. There's going to be some really good basketball. I'm predicting of the Elite Eight that the Alabama-Duke game might be the best game of all of them. And that's on tonight, folks, about 9 o'clock. So get ready. This is Saturday. We're taping this, which is unusual for us. But me and Peter addicted here. We're going into this thing crazy. We got 16. We're going to 8. And then we're going to rock and roll down to the Final Four. All right. But Duke took Arizona, and it was Super Cooper. It really was. If you're looking for him in a big game to do some big stuff, 30 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 block shots. The kid was everywhere. Dunking on people, taking it to the rim strong. And he's the guy, even as a freshman, although they're pretty much all freshmen on that team, he's the guy that stirs that drink, man. As a freshman, he gets that team going. And you need guys like that on a team. Translation, still an issue. NBA translation, still an issue. Arizona, good job. You know, Duke was 11 for 19 from three-point range. They came out on fire, 60%. I mean, they just shot the crap out of the ball. Unbelievable. Alabama, BYU, I thought this would be a little bit better game than it was. 25-point spread. Alabama just came out. And if you want to talk about Duke's shooting, Alabama, we talked about them all year, that Alabama's thing is we're either dunking the ball or we're shooting a three. And they're shooting those threes way, way out there. They got some guys with range, but oh my God, did they go on fire against BYU.
How can you come up with a defense for that, though?
It's if you commit to it, the defense is at your own. The defense is yourself. What happens when you shoot bad? There's going to be some nights you shoot bad.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're playing up against a team like that and they're shooting from downtown or right in your face.
And then they have the big guys that can get at the rim, too.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's not without that 1-2 punch. They do have a 1-2 punch. They're not just sitting out there on the perimeter launching bombs. They can do a little bit of both, and their guard play is very good. But they have totally committed to it. And the other night, oh, my God, Mark Sears put on a performance, 34 points, 8 assists. He was 10 of 16 from three-point range. He scored 30 of his 34 points from behind the line. That's commitment. Richie Saunders from BYU had a great tournament, 25 points, 6 rebounds. Love that kid's game. He's got a high motor. Texas Tech took out Arkansas. Pete, I just wanted to slow down here for a second because Calipari's got a 13-point lead in this game. They come down the end of the thing, and there are people just at least me, just going, why did you do that? And why didn't you do this? And they lost the lead. Texas Tech came all the way back, came down. It gets into a situation where Arkansas is up by 3. And you get into that discussion that coaches, prognosticators love to have, and it's a really good discussion, is if you're up 3, should you foul? That way they get 2 shots and your lead is safe. But if they hit a 3-point shot, you're going to overtime. And so a lot of people in this business think the prime move there is to foul. Let the clock tick down, foul them. There's no guarantee the kid's going to make both shots either. And then you're still up by 2, 3, or 1. But what happened was they came down, didn't foul, left the guy from Texas Tech open on the perimeter, and whacked. The 3-ball went in, and they lost it in overtime. Good game. 85-83. Jonell Davis, the FAU transfer, finally came out with the game that we thought he was capable of all year. 30 points and 6 rebounds. Texas Tech had just 3 guys with 20 points, and they are tough up front. Darian Williams had a monster game for them. So that slides out your first of the how you got to the Elite Eight. Now you're working the other side. You got Michigan State over Mississippi. A great coaching matchup between Beard and Izzo. A great team matchup between these two. And Padula from Mississippi, if you had to give out an all-tournament team here, he's got to be on this all-tournament team. 3 games in a row over 20 points. He had 24 and 4 assists. Tried his best to keep them in that game. They lost 73-70. Jace Richardson back from Michigan State with a great game. But this is Izzo time. They were down double digits as well. They were down by over 10 points. They fought. They scrapped. They came back. And that's Tom Izzo. Okay. You got Tennessee over Kentucky, an SEC on SEC violent game. And Ziegler and Lanier, 35. And they really played well. Ziegler had 10 assists as well. So if you're going to have 18 points, 10 assists out of him, Rick Barnes' team is going to be really good. What you're looking at there with Kentucky, though, is they didn't really have the same talent that everybody had this year, in my opinion, or the same talent that they're going to be getting here in the very near future. Because Coach Calipari went from Kentucky to Arkansas. They had a fire sale at Kentucky. They cleaned out the entire roster. They cleaned everybody out. When Mark Pope came in, it was a little bit late in this process as well, where a lot of the really good players that were in the portal had signed already. And so when he came into this, he kind of had to make his roster go because he was obliterated by the previous coach, and then he had to make it work late. And this guy's a really good coach. Kentucky people are going to be happy. They made the Sweet 16 this year. They got bounced by Tennessee, but they're right there. They'll be right there. And if I was the people of Kentucky, I'd be celebratory about that coaching change. Auburn, 78 over Michigan. Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf. Like with Julian Reese and Queen, I said that's one of the best front lines. If you got to compare that front line to anybody in this NCAA tournament, you got to throw up Danny Wolf and you got to throw up Vlad Golden. They both had excellent tournaments. Janai Broom came out with a monster game of 22 and 16, though, proving why he and Cooper Flagg have been discussed for the Wooden Award winner all year long. I think it's a binary now, Pete, down between those two players. You've got, 34-24 on the rebounds by Tennessee. Kentucky got muscled a little bit there in that game. Same thing happened here. Auburn just muscling and getting to the offensive glass. Tahad Pettiford has been one of the superstars of this tournament. Absolutely for sure. No sure way to slow that guy down. When they got all that other talent out there, the guard from Auburn, Tahad Pettiford, is playing great basketball right now. Purdue and Houston, wow. You gotta go back and watch this game a little bit because Purdue really comes out and plays great basketball. There was just, a couple of things at the end that make you go, and a couple of plays at the end where there was some plays you say, wow, that looked like a foul to me. And they got Purdue bounced out of there. 62-60 Purdue, the Boilermakers, you got to give them credit. They hung in there. They did all they could to stay in there. Lost the game. You know, it was 62-60. It was 60-60 with 3 seconds left in the game.
Wow.
You know, and so Braden Smith, great game by the guard. 15 assists. Milo Suzan, the winning bucket for the Houston Cougars, but he also was 6 for 9 from three-point range. Really, really had a great game. All right, so what does that do to us? What does that do to us, folks? I'm going to tell you what it does to us. You got some great basketball, all right? But it puts you on 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-3 time. Design. If you were sitting in a TV executive studio in the beginning of the year and they said, what's the best possible scenario we could get, they'd go 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. Throw in 1-3 just so it doesn't look like we're only on 1-2 time and playing that pa waltz that it seems like we're playing there. And so this is going to draw some scrutiny. Right now, everybody's kind of caught up in it. It's like a two-headed monster, though, Pete, because right now you're looking at these matchups and you are salivating. You are sitting there going, Duke, Alabama, my God, what a great game. What a matchup. Texas Tech and Florida going on a few minutes after we hang up the phone here, Pete. I mean, great games. But they have lacked. The entire tournament has lacked for a certain je ne sais quoi. Why is it lacking? We just told you. It's designed now. It's lost all that craziness. It's lost all of that really, really good madness that people signed up for. They've taken one step into the graveyard of the NBA right now. The NCAA has taken a huge, huge drop step into the graveyard that the NBA is right now.
I think they've taken a half a mile step into the WWE arena. Where they're setting up storylines on purpose.
They had LeBron James on TV the other day, and if you were listening to his comments, man, it sounded to me an awful lot like he don't sound the NBA's on the straight and up either.
Wow. Yeah, it just sounds like they're setting up storylines. It started with North Carolina.
It's entertainment, right?
Started with North Carolina. Yeah, it's entertainment.
It's entertainment, right? So therefore, what you taught me right from the very beginning is that the product really doesn't matter. It's just selling the advertising.
It's the eyeballs.
Yeah, that's all it is. And right now, they baked it down to the basic essentials of what they're looking for. And now you can see who's running it. Because nobody in their right mind that knows basketball like this would have run it like this.
But this is why the Crown may actually work.
I think the Crown's got a lot going for it. I'm excited to watch that.
And
I think they had the great idea of not getting involved in this. They're playing in between, the Elite Eight and the Final Four. Mm-hmm. It's genius. It's a lull in time. I'm sitting there the other night in my house, and I'm just a basketball junkie. I get it, all right? But I'm sitting in my house. It's Monday, and there's no game on. Nothing. And I'm screaming at my television, NIT, NIT, where are you when I need you? Where's a doubleheader on a Monday night when there's nothing else going on? Instead, you ran your games up against NCAA games at the very same time.
And
whose idea was that?
And you became NI who?
I love that, Pete. I love that. NI who? All right, Pete. So it gives us Texas Tech and Florida. I'm not betting against this Texas Tech team after what I saw the other night. They're loaded up front. JT Toppin, they got some players, man. And I tell you, they're physical. They are physical. And I think if there's one way maybe to get to this Florida team, it's to be overly physical with them if you can get away with it. And Texas Tech has the players, they might be able to get away with that. Florida, though, man, they're just playing great basketball. And to them, the credit goes. They've been all year long one of the top consistent teams all year. I think you could take it down to the big three this year of Auburn, Duke, and Florida. That's who's really been dominating. Tennessee, Houston, Alabama, really, really good second tier, but they really haven't been up in that big place where, like, especially where Duke has been. But I think if the Duke Blue Devils were in the SEC this year, they wouldn't have had the run that they had. Duke and Alabama, I'm excited to watch this game because I called this game. This is where Duke goes home. I don't have Duke in the Final Four. I have Alabama in the Final Four. This is where I had Duke going home. I don't, the way both of these teams are shooting, this could be a really, really good game. I think this will be the best game of the Elite Eight. I'm just going out on a limb and saying that. All right, Tennessee and Houston. That's who's going to play tomorrow. Talk about a barn burner. Talk about athleticism, size, and guard play. That's going to be unbelievable. L.J. Cryer for Houston. And then you got Ziegler and Lanier for Tennessee. Just a really good matchup. But let's talk coaching there for a second as well. You got Kelvin Sampson going up against Barnes, Rick Barnes. That's a great, great coaching matchup. Michigan State and Auburn. This is where I didn't have Auburn going to the Final Four, but I had North Carolina, I believe, in that bracket. But this Michigan State team, I'm going to tell everybody right now, is on a roll. And when Izzo, everybody knows this, when Izzo gets on a roll, their teams are hard to beat. You have to kill them. They're vampires, man. You got to drive a stake right through their heart, man. And I don't know that this Auburn team is right about, where it should be. I don't know. All right, so we're going to give you, the best we can here with the best we can. All right? So let's run through it quick, Pete. All right? You got Elite Eight. Texas Tech, Florida. Who you like?
I think Florida.
I got Florida to win the whole thing.
Yeah, me too.
So I got them going and moving forward as well. All right, Duke, Alabama, Pete. Who you like there?
I got Duke.
I got Alabama.
I just think Duke started to put a roll together, too.
You're 100% right. Nobody's playing better basketball than them right now. That would be my assessment. Florida's playing great. Tennessee's playing good. Auburn's playing very, very well. Michigan State's playing great, but nobody is playing as good as Duke is right now. They have looked like UConn.
Yeah.
That's who they look like, UConn. They're making this tournament look easy. They have been blowing people out. They took that Baylor team off the floor, and that Baylor team has at least 2 NBA first-round picks on it. Definitely with Edgecombe. I'd have to evaluate Ormir a little bit more, but I think he's going to be an NBA first-rounder. Tennessee, Houston, Pete. I think this is the hardest of the games to call.
Although Houston had a tough time with Purdue, I think they got the edge over Tennessee. I feel it in my bones. When I closed my eyes and just started mulling it all over, the name that kept popping up is Houston.
Now, you also realize you could have 4 SEC teams in the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
You go Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Auburn.
Yep.
And it's not gonna look balanced, I can tell you that.
Yep.
I like Houston there as well too. I think they're just a little bit tougher, but Tennessee shoots better. Tennessee offensively is a little better.
Yep.
Michigan State and Auburn.
Michigan. I have Auburn.
I do too. I'm gonna stick with them. I think Michigan State's very good.
Yep.
But this Auburn team is loaded. Janai Broom is going to be a Wooden finalist of one of 2.
Yep.
Tahad Pettiford, the freshman guard, is playing out of his mind right now. Chad Baker-Mazzara, big guy up front. They got some talent on this team. All right, Pete. We got a few minutes left,
Yep.
And I wanted to give you a little bit of our carousel grades. Got a little bit of carousel grades here for you.
Coaching carousel?
Coaching carousel. Here's another one for you. Here's somebody put out a Sweet 16 coaching rank. Kelvin Sampson, number 1. Tom Izzo, number 2. Matt Painter, number 3. Nate Oates, number 4. Bruce Pearl, 5. Chris Beard, number 6. I thought that was a little high. Can't put him over Rick Barnes. Rick Barnes, 7. Tommy Lloyd, 8. Thought that was a little high. John Shire, Duke, 9. Got to move him up. Done well. Calipari, 10. Arkansas, I wouldn't even put him on the list. Dusty May, Michigan. Golden from Florida. Pretty good list right there. Those are the guys that are in the Sweet 16 right now. Those are the guys that are playing. And I think, you could be variable with that list and say, okay, wait, You also have Grant McCaslin from Texas Tech, Mark Pope from Kentucky, Kevin Willard from Maryland. Don't like the way they handled all that business, but the kid can coach. And Kevin Young from BYU. Kevin Young has A.J. DeBonsa coming next year, and if Richie Saunders sticks around, they're going to be rough. All right. North Texas against UC Irvine Anteaters in the semifinals of the NIT, and Chattanooga, Chattanooga, playing against the A-10 Loyola Chicago Ramblers. Sister Jean is on another roll. All right, Pete, how many minutes do I got left?
I think you got about 3 or 4.
3 or 4. I can do it. I got carousel grades, folks. We're going to give you 12 teams that have hired new coaches, and we're going to give you their grades. All right? And this is a lot like, the end of the semester, and the report card comes home, and the AD is sitting there, and in the zone comes up, and they take his hire and give it an F.
Oh,
That's
boy.
the end of the day for him. He's going to go home and have to find something to drink. Virginia, Ryan Odom came from VCU, but had come just very recently from Utah State. So Utah State jump, out to VCU jump, now up to Virginia. Some of these guys are making really fast jumps. I like the hire. Dave Odom was this young man's dad, who was the head coach at Wake Forest, was also an assistant coach at Virginia back with Jim Larinaga and Terry Holland. So I give it a B+, only because I want to see some of these guys when they get up to those really, really top-level jobs have really, really – like when Dusty May got the Michigan job out of FAU, I had no problem with that. He took a team to the Final Four. Jim Larinaga took a team to the Final Four at George Mason. I had no problem with him getting a Miami job. I like to see that. But now we're into this kind of weird stuff, and I don't know if it's working as well. But I thought the hire of Odom, I think he's a good coach, and I think he's got some connectivity there. Can Virginia raise money? That's the new thing. Do you got a bag, Virginia? If you got a bag, you'll compete.
How big's your bag of cash?
That's it. That's it. Florida State, Luke Lukes. I gave it a D-, Pete. The only reason I did not give it an F, because he came down from the NBA, hasn't coached a day in his life, taken over Florida State. The only reason I didn't give him an F is because he did play there. And so there's a little bit of histrionics there, but that's a D- for sure. Indiana, Darren DeVries, he came from Drake, went to West Virginia, spent 1 year there and then bounced out. Now he's at Indiana. It's his dream job. He grew up in the area. I give it a B, not bad. Ben McCollum going from Iowa, again, another guy that, less than 14 months ago was the head coach at a Division II school. Went to the Division II school, took Drake 1 year, bang, all the way up to the top, 30-3 or something like that in the regular season, and now they go, boom, we're taking them up to Iowa, but I gave it a B. Miami, Jai Lucas, I gave it an F, absolute F. Hasn't coached a day in his life. The Miami job's a hard job, and you are getting an F, Miami. NC State, Will Wade, I gave it an A-. Was at LSU, got caught on the wiretaps, went to McNeese, made the best of it. He gets a shot. I give it an A-. Richard Pitino, going to Xavier, I gave it an A. Did a great job at New Mexico. I gave it an A, and it also brings flavor to the Big East because now you're going to have him and his dad coaching against each other at least 2 times. The St. John's fans can get their "Who's Your Daddy" chant ready. All right. West Virginia, Russ Hodge, I gave it a B. Russ Hodge is the gentleman from North Texas. I thought they got jobbed by the NCAA by not getting in, but Russ, your team's still playing, and I don't like the fact that we now got a new job while your team is still playing. Villanova doesn't have a coaching candidate right now, but I'm giving them a D right now for the way they've handled this process. Iona, Dan Garriott, I'm not giving anybody the reason why, but this is an F. This is an absolute F. Fran McCaffrey goes from Iowa back to his alma mater, Penn. I give it a B-. Pete, you're in the zone. We'll catch you next week.